Okay, so I want to make this webinar about, especially since we're just coming back to school. I want to make this webinar about the kinds of things that you consistently see across the visual non-glossary and what students can expect when they're seeing the visual non-glossary. Because one of the most powerful things that we know instructionally, just generally, is just consistency and routines for students. Um, and so what I really wanted to show what I really wanted to do with this resource is make something that the students will see patterns every day that will be very predictable that they'll be able to refer to. So first of all, let me just ask you, you've been getting a lot of interest about the visual and glossary. Um, where would you rate yourself in terms of how familiar you are with this?
The only familiarity I have with it is the training you did at the, wait a minute, was I at that T-Cella meeting?
Were you at the virtual one in June?
Yes, I was at the virtual T-Cella meeting. So
Okay.
that's, yes.
So I was very much trying to do that in delivering professional development to the T cell community without coming across as saying, this is the greatest thing in the world. Everyone has to go buy it right now. So I did refer to the VNG, but I'll be able to give you kind of a much more detail than what I was able to provide back then. I'll say this. What we're going to be talking about today is really what students can expect to see when they're looking at VNG content, but then kind of more important than that is what we can expect the flow of VNG lessons that lean heavily on the VNG can look like, and really what kind of the point of that all that is. So I will say this that VNG visuals, we kind of follow a process. They're all very unique from each other, but we try to incorporate as many motifs and patterns across the visuals as we possibly can. So I'm going to go through what those motifs are. The number one thing is the vocabulary words that are VNG vocabulary words are always bold purple. So here's a visual for ecosystem. Abiotic is also a vocabulary word. And I guess what I mean by vocabulary word is it is in terms of the visual and glossary, there is a VNG visual at this grade level for the word abiotic. I think this visual was specific to fifth grade TEKS. And so with the new TEKS, abiotic is a word in fifth grade. So this visual this word is purple. So every once in a while, we'll have a vocabulary word that's in a visual, and that word doesn't appear at the grade level because it's just kind of exposure to higher level language without emphasizing that word. Um, and so that word will just be black. But if you see it as bold purple, it's a vocabulary word. So and it has its own visual. So there is a visual for flow of energy, there is a visual for biotic, and there is a visual for abiotic in the ecosystem visual. And students will consistently see these purple words, and they'll know that those are key vocabulary words. And actually, that's something that when I'm working with teachers of any content area, but especially science, because that's what I taught, it's my passion, it's my forte. What I really try to emphasize is if we try to teach vocabulary, there's a there's a there's a tendency to, or there's a temptation to teach the entire glossary, but there's so many words in all content areas, especially in science, that we can't do it, and our kids definitely can't internalize all of that language. And so instead, what I really try to emphasize is let's focus on keywords and let's really emphasize those keywords. And then what we could call like secondary words that are important for academic language, they're going to come out in the discussions, and we'll see those in visuals. So we'll see human activities here, but we're not going to make a lesson focus on the human activities. The students will acquire that language through discussions about the ecosystem. So that's kind of what I mean by secondary vocabulary. The primary vocabulary or the main vocabulary is always going to be bold purple. Um, there's always going to be limited text, but there is going to be text in the visuals. And the important thing about that is that students will learn that the text that's in visuals is very important academic language for the lesson. And we really don't have to teach them this. They will pick this up very quickly. That the text that's in the visual, if they use that text in their conversations, in their verbal responses are going to sound great. And the reason why I say we don't have to teach this is because, in my experience, kids just kind of naturally use the language that's in the visual without me having to say, make sure you use this language. So that's one of the easiest things about using structured visuals is kids will use the language. We intentionally don't put too much language in there because we want to really emphasize here are the keywords to use. And also, when we're making these visuals, we always do a test of saying, what if I am brand new to this language? What if I'm brand new to the English language? And or I'm brand new to the academic language. I have no idea what any of these words are. Can I make an inference and have some understanding about what an ecosystem is? And so this abiotic factors could be a brand new word I've never heard before, but I can infer, oh, sun and wind and rain and clouds are all abiotic factors, so I can start to make some inference about that. So another thing that visuals have, kind of a repeated motif that we see in a lot of the visuals, are symbols. So we see a lot of this symbol in our science visuals a lot to represent energy because energy comes out a lot. One thing that's kind of subtle but is really important in biology, well, definitely in biology, but also in all the grade levels that vertically align to biology, is you'll see that the energy that's coming from the sun to producers is always a full battery. And the energy that's going from producers to consumers and from consumers to other consumers is always going to be a partial battery to really get at that the 10% energy rule. Loss of energy is heat. It's very subtle, but that's what we see consistently. In other subject areas, there's well, also in science, we also see calendars to depict the passing of time. And then in other subject areas, we see things like this cash symbol to represent money. And then in social studies, there's a lot of laws and acts. So we have this symbol a lot. There's almost always going to be some kind of arrow in VNG visuals, and those arrows very often show cause and effect. And specifically, we use two kinds of arrows. We use, well, here, I don't have it on here. Here we go. This is a very small arrow. You can barely see this, but this is a label arrow that's just pointing. And then this is a block arrow, and the block arrow always represents process. So usually cause and effect, but it might represent something becoming something else or something leading to something else. So these block arrows are very present in VNG visuals. VNG visuals are often telling a story, going from situation A before to situation B after. We also try to use a lot of real world examples. So we do use cartoons to depict things, and then we also try to include real photographs. Here's a cartoon that shows primary succession with real photographs of ecosystems at different stages of primary succession, of the development of a climax community. And then lastly, we make a very deliberate effort in VNG visuals to have very diverse representation of human beings. We want that representation to roughly look like our student population in general. And that's not something we need to explicitly tell students, but it is something that I wanted to point out for the sake of this webinar, that we do make that deliberate effort when we have humans. Sometimes we'll try to use a diverse array of humans when we're showing cartoon versions of humans. what we'll also often do is we'll often have symbols to represent people uh, like the stick man restroom symbol or just a silhouette of a person. So we try to do that because students being able to see themselves in the visual, or students be able to feel like they're not underrepresented in a visual, is really important. So these are all the things that students can expect to see in the VNG visuals. And we can teach students explicitly, especially early on, here are the kind of things to be looking for. I'll show you something that a lot of teachers find helpful on the VNG website is in the resources tab, there's a page called free resources. And on this tab, there is, where is it? It's called Symbols Anchor Chart. This is what it is. And this is an anchor chart. It's printable and it's pretty big. So if you just print it on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, I think most of the students should be able to see it in the room. But it's also easy to post a different place in the room. And these are just the common symbols that students should expect to see in VNG visuals. And so a teacher could say, when we're looking at a visual that has this symbol in it, early on when the teacher's trying to teach these motifs, teacher could say, okay, what does this symbol mean? And then point to the anchor chart. And so that they can make that connection. Um, this also hints at another thing that we do in our visuals, which is we are very big on color coding. So we make sure that if the word itself that the visual is depicting is a process, like for example, photosynthesis or transpiration or something like that, then we make the block arrow purple. Or if we're labeling something that's specifically that key concept within a broader context, then we'll make that label arrow purple. So this is a resource that can be really helpful to teach students the different patterns, different motifs of VNG visuals. But even if we don't explicitly teach students any of this, they will pick this up pretty quickly. Because there's such consistency between the visuals, it's very easy for them to pick up on these patterns. Um, the only challenge is just making sure we use the visuals consistently. And that's kind of the second part of this webinar that I really wanted to emphasize, which is not only are the visuals themselves have a lot of kind of consistency, but the VNG lessons, the slide decks that we can download for the Non-Glossary also have a lot of consistency. So they always have this structure. First 4 slides are teacher notes. I'll just tell you, if you ever see a slide that is, the slides are color coded as well. So if you ever see a slide that's gray, it means it's for the teacher's eyes only. It's not meant to be projected as part of the lesson. I will say that these teacher notes, we've just updated them this summer, and they've got some very good things in them. They've got QR codes for every single different activity and strategy within these slide decks, and the QR code and a link that the QR code links to is a YouTube video showing me modeling that strategy or modeling that activity. We've got a lot of extension activities. These are all yellow. The word wall visuals are at the very end, and they are hidden slides. And in fact, I can go ahead and show you an example so we don't have to look at this very small outline. I can show this to you directly. So Michelle, you can see my my PowerPoint, can't you? With
Yes.
navigating this. Okay. So so this is an example slide deck from the Visual and Glossary. This happens to be Brown v. Board of Education, which is so important for our modern education system that I thought it's a great one to chew off. These are the QR codes I was talking about. You can also use these links to jump to the specific slides. But yeah, all these QR codes are videos of me modeling the strategy. There's also a guide to the different icons that we see on the VNG visuals, and I'll go through that in a little bit, as well as a script for what a structured conversation should look like. And I was mentioning that at the very end, there's always word wall visuals, and these are always hidden. And the reason why they're hidden is because they're not meant to be part of the slide deck presentation. They're meant to be printed out and on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and displayed in the room. When students are at the objectives, you'll see the word wall version of this visual, and it's a simplified version. It's very big. It's very simple. And the idea is for them to just have some kind of sight recognition to connect to the structured visual that they'll be having a conversation about in that lesson. So here's a word wall visual for Brown v. Board of Education. Here's the actual structured visual for Brown v. Board of Education. A lot more complex. We're going to have several conversations about this. But when I look up at the board or at the word wall at an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, I'll be able to see this very simple version that I can make a site reference to as a student. And what I encourage teachers is, well, if you're using the VNG every day, it's the best way to do it, in my opinion. But if you're using it every day, you can just print off these word wall visuals, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, put them in the front of the room with your objectives, and then at the end of the day, move them over to the unit's word wall that'll be growing throughout the unit. So that's the word wall visuals. Then there's lots of different extension activities, and these can be done before, during, after a lesson, at the end of the unit, as a review. Really, they can be used in a lot of different ways. But what I really try to emphasize with VNG lessons is that what we're really trying to do is we're really trying to focus on structured conversations. So let's let the structured conversations be be what I call the heart of the lesson. And looks like we have another person coming in, so I'm going to let Suzanne come in, and we can get her acquainted, and then we continue. Hi, good afternoon, Suzanne.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome. It's a very intimate room today, so so you're very welcome.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't get the link and I'm in the middle of three other things, but I just
Oh my
figured
gosh.
let me just see if you're still there and I have the right link. Thanks. It's very
Um,
intimate, yes.
yeah. No, I'm so glad you showed up. Let me just ask, where are you coming from, and what's your position?
Um, I'm an ESL, ENL teacher for 30 some odd years, but presently I work more with teachers in trying to help them support the English language learners in their classrooms, K-12, New York.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, it's great to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah, we've used I've used your stuff all the time and use visuals all the time. So
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so you've got some familiarity with the visual glossary.
yeah, and the VNG, it's wonderful. The sentence frames, Q, triple SA, I mean, use it all. I just figured, maybe there was something different you were showing in terms of
Yeah,
I'm trying to get other teachers to do this, to use your free resources and to get districts to purchase the more robust version.
definitely. Definitely. Wonderful. Okay, well, yeah, I was just going through what the kinds of things that we typically see in VNG lessons, and that we can help students to look out for when they're getting used to using VNG visuals for the first time. Kind of commonalities between VNG visuals, and then commonalities within the VNG slide decks and within the VNG lessons. Um, and as you were coming in, what we were just talking about were the structured conversations, which there's a lot to the VNG slide decks that can be used as supplemental to any lesson, or specifically to the VNG lessons. But
Right.
these structured conversations, we can consider them to be like the heart of the lesson. And I think, Suzanne, you're familiar with this structure of the VNG
Yes.
slides that you mentioned, Q triple SA.
Right. Well, I use it differently. Yeah, I have separate posters that I tell teachers to use with the the left side of your slide here.
Awesome.
Um, I find that this is too much. This is too busy, and honestly, some teachers get overwhelmed by this
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
whatever. So I think that for teachers, I show it separately. Just I'm just throwing it out there for you. You might want to have a separate deck for teachers and make a big slide for just the pink left column, and that should be what teachers could work from as they develop familiarity with using the VNG slides for.
Yeah.
It's too
Okay.
much on one slide.
Yeah, so you have them printed out as like a separate poster that they can
Honestly,
refer
I
to.
make my own. I'm old. I believe in magic markers and poster boards
Yeah.
and flip charts. So the flip charts are good because some teachers actually travel. If they're teaching middle school science, then they're not always in the same room. So they can take those charts. Or
Oh,
they,
nice.
they don't have to always rely on the screen because on the smartboard they want to put their own lesson. So this way they have those questions all the time up there.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that. So yes, I'm all for trying to make everything as simple as possible, and less busy as possible. And I will say this, you might know this, Suzanne and Michelle, if you don't know this, these VNG slide decks are entirely editable. And so with these structured conversations, we can encourage teachers to choose the signals and who's going to go first using the brackets. But what I often encourage teachers to do is actually, instead of using brackets, to actually to start deleting things and make it so that there's only going to be one symbol on here, and they're going to be able to refer specifically to that as saying this is what is our structured conversation is going to look like.
Right.
But yes, no, I love your idea of having a completely separate poster, or having things displayed on a flip chart that they can refer to. Um, Absolutely. And we make the VNG lessons as something that can be downloaded and then projected,
Right.
but something that I really encourage teachers to do when they can is to print out the visuals and just have one for every table, and allow students to get their hands on it and look at it specifically, one on one. We design them so that for a vision corrected student who's at the back of the room, they should be able to see everything that's projected on a big screen. But conditions are often not ideal, and the closer and more hands-on they can get with it, the better.
Okay.
Pardon me. Okay, so uh, with the VNG structured conversation slides, they're always going to follow the same script. Suzanne, you mentioned QSSA. QSSA is a really solid structure for going through a VNG lesson. We use the language every voice method to say
All right.
three parts of the structured conversation that we really want teachers to emphasize. And the first is posing and preparing. So not just asking the question, but posing the question. And so that might sound something like we're going to think about this question without saying, here's my question. Um, Generally, posing and preparing means not expecting a direct answer immediately, but instead, let's think about this. Um, Share is when they share with each other, and like QSSA, we really encourage to have the teacher designate who's going to share first. And then finally, amplifying and celebrating. It's both randomly calling on students as a way to have a whole class conversation, but it's also about really trying to get a diversity of ideas and to extend those ideas as the teacher facilitator of that whole class conversation. So this might sound like, let's think about this question, and when you are ready to finish the sentence, or when you're ready to answer the question, go ahead and finish it. The share is going to be, you're going to share with your elbow partner or your table group, starting with so-and-so. And then for amplify and celebrate, what we really encourage teachers to do, and when, in fact, in the notes of the VNG slide deck, there's a script with sample response stems that we encourage teachers to use. Things like, oh, that's interesting because, or it sounds like you're saying, Or did anyone else notice? And so when teachers call on students, we really encourage them to not just let that be a question that's being answered, but let that be the start of a class conversation where we can get multiple ideas and we can really get a sense of what students understand, and let that drive the lesson more than anything else. So that is so here we go. That is the every voice method, and that's generally what we're expecting most VNG structured conversations to look like. But in general, using the visuals themselves go a long way, and in whatever kind of way we use the visuals, actually put out tips and tricks to the website secretly earlier this week. I'm going to send out a newsletter next week that's all about using different strategies with the visuals to have station activities within our lessons. So that will be officially coming out next week, but it is on the VNG website in the tips and tricks section. I can show you actually. That's right in the resources tab again. There's tips and tricks, and we've got a whole article on different kinds of station activities that students can use. So we're wrapping up the time, though I do have plenty of time if you want to stay for questions. I'll just say this, that when we use the routines of the structured conversations and when we use the structured visuals themselves, we start to change the narrative that students have about school. And that narrative that a lot of students have about school is a place where I go to complete a series of tasks so that I can get a grade, so that I can move on to the next grade level and be with my friends. And we want to change that narrative. We want students to want to come to school because they intuitively enjoy the learning experience that they're having in their classrooms. And a big part of that is what we're doing with questions. Are we asking questions as a box checking exercise where students are going to answer the question to make us satisfied as their teachers? Or are we asking a question to start a class conversation? And that's really what we're trying to promote with the visual and glossary, is having class conversations that start with students reflecting in their own mind on a structured visual. Then they have a small group conversation with their partner or with their table group. And then we have a class conversation where we hear from multiple students. And as a class, we form a community. So let me stop there and ask either of you if you have any questions or any feedback or anything you'd like to talk about.
No, I think it makes sense. I mean, the VNG fits with my philosophy of teaching anyway. I think secondary teachers in particular don't let students talk enough.
Yeah.
So they could learn a lot from, elementary teachers. And they should trust that when students are talking, they're talking about the topic at hand. And even if they're not, the socialization is very important, particularly for our English language learners.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't know. I mean, in some districts where I am in New York, we're dealing with kids not necessarily speaking the target language, which in an ENL class, it's English.
Mm-hmm.
But so some teachers can tolerate that and celebrate it. Some of them don't understand the role the home language plays in the development of the second language. So that's where some PD can come in. But
Yeah.
You know what? You can teach strategies all you want. If the mindset is not there, the mindset's not there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I'm dealing with. Anyway, I have another meeting. We are so in last minute mode because we have retreats and faculty meetings and so on. And even though we start in New York, in my district, we start August 31st.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So
In
I don't
Texas,
know
it's a
where
little
you
bit
are,
earlier.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I know in other parts of the country, kids have already been in school 2 weeks, but New York City doesn't start till September 10th.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
know some districts in Texas started in early August. We like to do it in the hottest
Yeah.
part of summer for some
I
reason.
mean, yeah, that's crazy. We don't have the AC in the buildings to do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a necessity down here.
Right. I mean, 30 years ago, maybe we didn't have such hot summers, but now it's impossible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's another discussion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Anyway,
thank you so
thank you
much
so
for, yeah.
much. You're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
great work at VNG. I
Oh, thank you.
wish you were all closer to New York.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're hoping to be there one day, I promise.
Okay. Take care. Be safe. Thank
Take
you.
care. You too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Michelle, if you're there.
Thanks. So this was really helpful to me because we're still, rolling out three-dimensional learning. It's new, it's a different way of thinking and
Mhm.
teaching. And it's this fine line, having done a lot of training with Paul Anderson,
Oh, great. Yeah.
of not spoiling the wonder
Yeah.
and front loading the vocabulary, but at the same time meeting the needs of our kids.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to reading your tips and tricks for stations, because I think that is one way we could do a better job making sure that the kids know the vocabulary. There's still a misconception that the STAR test is this reading vocabulary test, and it's moved so far beyond that
Yeah.
that I'm fighting an uphill battle of writing definitions down all the time because that's what
Yeah.
teachers want to do, or the, example, non-example. I think this could be really, really helpful to a lot of our teachers. So I
Oh, I'm
appreciate
so
your.
glad to hear that. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Phenomenon-based learning is, I mean, it's just an intuitive way to learn. But I think it's a combination of um, changing from the way we were taught and also changing from um, maybe the only ways we know how to teach, but also a sense of pressure. And it's ironic because you're absolutely right that just rote memorization of vocabulary is not going to help you on the star. And yet, I think teachers often feel pressure from the star to overload vocabulary. And
Yeah, absolutely.
let's give students exposure and access to the vocabulary without it being something that they have to complete as a task. Let's have them experience um, with the vocabulary. And what I like to tell teachers is, at the very least, if you want to just use one of these visuals as a phenomenon for students to engage with,
Yes.
do that. If you have another phenomenon that you can use in conjunction with the visual, it's going to be amazing. But at the very least, if they're just engaging with the visual, that's something. It's a lot better than bullet points on a slide.
And one of our priorities, and has been for a couple of years now, is discourse. So the structured conversation piece will also add to that look for that I know so many admin have when they're walking into a
Mhm.
classroom. So
Absolutely.
that's another piece I really, really like, the focus on structured conversations. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
mm,
Yeah, Michelle, if it helps, I can send you a coaching slash self-reflection tool for the every voice method, and kind of like
okay.
what to what you should expect to see students doing and the teacher doing when using the every voice method.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay, I can send that to you after this.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure. Thank you for coming. And
All right.
you have my contact information. If you have any questions or if I can help in any way, please let me know.
Okay, great. Thanks. Have a great evening.
Thanks a lot. You too. Bye bye.